Well, good afternoon. My name's Tim Smyth and I'm here to represent the Western Channel Observatory. And really, it's about the Western Channel Observatory, or Station L4, incorporating a genetic observatory. So what is the Western Channel Observatory? Well, really, it's an area of the Western English Channel that incorporates both oceanic and coastal waters, and it straddles biogeographical provinces, so you get both the boreal type species as well as the warm temperate organisms. And there's been considerable fluctuation of flora and fauna since records began, and records began at the back end of the 19th century. There's a series of stations. Station L4 is the one that we're most familiar with here. We've got data from PML back about 20 years or so, and that's about 7 miles offshore. Station E1 is about 20 nautical miles offshore. So I'm getting myself confused. Okay, so these are the kind of things that we measure at Station L4. I won't read through the list, but there's a pretty exhaustive list of metadata, or what you guys would consider metadata. These are our real data for us. So we're measuring temperature, salinity, oxygen, PAR, zooplankton, phytoplankton, and then since 2001 we've been measuring a genetic time series there. At E1, that's a very long-term time series we've got there, going there since 1903. And we've got moorings at these time stations as well. And it's also important to note that we're not just measuring the pelagic communities, but we're also looking at the benthic part of the ecosystem as well. This slide really is just to say that drivers actually changed throughout the history of time series. So back in 1884, when the MBA was set up in Plymouth, the driver really behind setting up of that of the time series and of the MBA itself was the concern over fisheries. Now, over time, the drivers behind the time series have changed. So now our strapline is looking at environmental change in a semi-pristine environment on centennial timescales. And then also we've got the Earth System Modelling Strategy, which is part of NERC's strategy in looking at how Earth systems models function or don't function, as the case may be. And these time series stations are invaluable for validating Earth systems models and parameterizing them. So this is my last and contentious slide. What are the drivers, or what should be the drivers behind a genetic observatory? Well, I think really what we should not be doing is actually going about collecting vast amounts of data which clog up databases and no one will ever characterize. Ooh, that might be a bit contentious for me to say. I think it's also very wrong to say that we can see unexpectedly high diversity at a genetic observatory. At L4, we expect it to be very highly diverse. That is life. That's what life is all about. And function or pattern, when we look at these databases and sequences, will never fall out, even if we devise the most sophisticated statistical analysis ever devised. So what should a genetic, in my opinion, or our opinion, what should be the driver behind a genetic observatory? Well, I think what it really boils down to is that a genetic observatory should be about function, it should be about process, and it should be about meaning. And this actually is the only way that we'll be able to push forward any understanding. And there is a hierarchy, I believe, of effort, that DNA can tell us a lot about diversity, but actually it tells us nothing about function. So we can start to look at something like RNA, which it doesn't actually tell us anything about transcriptional regulation. And then we can maybe put a little bit more effort in and look at the proteins, but that actually tells us nothing about the post-transcriptional regulation. So then we can maybe look at something even more complex to look at the metabolites, but then you've got the complexities of actually looking at the community interaction, which aren't picked up with that technique. So really what my take-home message is really is that our reward when we set up a genetic observatory is directly correlated with the effort that we put in. Thank you. With 29 seconds.